Hi, this is Paul Brerin, and I'm honored to be given the opportunity to do this customer spotlight for VMware. How to build your awesome virtualization home lab with VMware vSphere 6.0. I'll be using esxi and vCSA. So, my website, tinkertry.com, features hundreds of articles and videos all about virtualization in home labs. In this particular presentation, I'm going to focus on 3 tips I'm going to give and give you a brief peek, live peek at my actual home lab. Let's get started moving to slide 2. I'm going to be highlighting these fun and practical tips. So when I say fun, I mean I'm getting rid of some of the drudgery, long username password things, annoyances in your browser, or even ugliness in your home lab, like IP addresses instead of host names. So we're going to get into that. Slide 3. I'm gearing this presentation towards intermediate and advanced IT pros, but some of my videos walk folks through, including even newbies who have never done this before. Again, my audience would typically be people a little more nitpicky that want something a little more graceful and elegant than just hard coding an IP address, which would be kind of the easy way out, but not the prettiest. So my particular VMware esxi hypervisor environment that I call vZilla in my home lab has been left running 24/7 and uses about $200 a year of electricity. It's been running for about 4 years now. It's a Core i7 with 32 gig of RAM, and I'm looking to replace it soon with an Intel Xeon D. Here I've highlighted an article for you to consider reading, which has been extremely popular. That particular platform looks very promising for well under $1,000 for the home virtualization lab enthusiast. Who, what, when? Now we're on the when. If you have the inclination to do this and leave a lab running 24/7, that's whenever you have the budget. Where? In your home. Typically, you have only a home Wi-Fi router in a home lab. What does that mean? Well, we're going to get into that. That has implications for deploying the appliance that were not there on vCSA appliance 5.5. 6.0 is a little more picky. In a home lab also, you do need to think about licensing. Well, with eval experience, we have the promise and the hope that it really is geared towards a home lab for $200 a year to do what you want to do in your home lab, unfettered by license restrictions or 60-day time bombs. Now we get into the why. If you've been using things like VMware Workstation or the like just to do some exam crams for like a VCP, well, that's one thing, but you probably don't leave it running. It's temporarily built, you crammed, you pass the test, and you move on. This set of tips and the video that I'll be pointing to at the end are really for people that are more interested in leaving something running efficiently 24/7 and a piece of hardware dedicated to vSphere 6. So who, what, when, where, why, and finally how. Tip number 1, using host names instead of IP addresses. So what if you want to get your names to show instead of IP addresses to show? I'm going to jump ahead a little and give you a look at what I'm talking about. There, this picture should speak 1,000 words to you. So you've got the red circles trying to highlight that. Notice my lab says vCenter and esxi. That's really handy when I'm blogging and trying to share with the world an article talking about what my mouse is clicking on, rather than an ugly IP address at the top left corner under those red circles, which would confuse folks and not exactly clarify what you're looking at. So that sounds simple, but it's not. Again, with vSphere 6, to get this to work, you'll see the blue and gray pop-up window there. It says VMware vCenter, VMware remote console. In that window, you'll see highlighted the appliance and what it's called, vcenter.lab.local. That took a bit of work to get that going. So I'm now going to highlight what that work was. The vCSA appliance, if you've done it on esxi 5.5 before, you do a file deploy from OVA file. It's totally different in 6.0 if you haven't seen it yet. Instead, you're running a web wizard to deploy the appliance, and you're asked a whole bunch of questions up front. So what I did was to sidestep or get around the requirement that VMware has for you to have a fully qualified domain name forward and reverse lookup working in your lab, which is really a product geared towards production, right, and enterprise, well, you might not have a dedicated Linux or Windows or full robust DHCP and DNS server that can do forward and reverse lookups by name or by IP. So my tinkering in my home lab involved, how do I get around this? How do I get my home's Wi-Fi router to cooperate? And what I did was I temporarily assigned a static IP to my WAN address. What does that mean? So Linksys, Netgear, D-Link, whatever you have, generally it's set for DHCP on the WAN, on the internet side, on the port that goes to your cable modems, for instance. Well, to get mine to not say ri.cox.net from Rhode Island Cox internet provider, I had to hard code my IP, and then I was able to type in lab.local. So I got the fully qualified domain name part nailed with step one. My DHCP server, which is my home Wi-Fi router, then fed out lab.local to any machines in my home network that needed it, like the vCSA appliance I was about to deploy. And all this is featured in my video here with the blue link at the bottom. Okay, bullet 2, create a DHCP reservation with the name of vCenter. What am I talking about here? Well, we've got this vCSA appliance. It has a MAC address. My video highlights how to get that out of it. And you want to tell your Wi-Fi router, hey, this is the MAC address for the appliance. Give it a name of vCenter and give it an IP of, in my case, 10.10.1.51. So now I've got bullet 2 addressed. My appliance is happy. It's been DHCP fed what it needs, and it comes up with the name I like. Moving to item 3, edit the esxi host file, etc/host. You go into the vCSA appliance, you edit this file, and you say, hey, I want to add esxi server to inventory, but instead of doing it by name, you do it, instead of doing it by IP address, you want to do it by name. So the way for it to see the name is to just edit esxi host file. That way we're not relying on my Wi-Fi router to do anything special about marrying my vCSA appliance to my esxi server, getting the two joined together. Okay, and again, video walkthrough gets you through all of this. Next slide. Tip 2, how to make your vSphere web client look and work more like an installed application. I've been doing this for years in my home lab. I used Chrome Canary in the past. Now I just use 64-bit Chrome. And what I do is Chrome's Create Application Shortcuts menu. I use that to create a launch icon for right in my Windows taskbar. Now I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. You're looking at my Windows 8.1 desktop. And we've got some icons here. If I hover my mouse over this icon on the left, sure looks like vSphere Client, the traditional installed Windows program, vSphere Client. You'll also notice nice names, vCenter and esxi. What's this other green icon? Hover my mouse over that. That's the vSphere Web Client. So I've got two green icons, handy for administration. And when I bring this up, you'll see VMware vSphere Client at the top left, and you'll notice there's no URL bar. So think about that. In Chrome, if we bring up vSphere Client and log in, we have a URL bar. We have browser-looking things, back and forward arrow, and a refresh button that'll get you in trouble. I like this better because there is no URL bar, wasting space at the top. And refresh you're supposed to do here anyway with the little icon that VMware vSphere Web Client gives you. So I don't really see a downside to this approach, to having a shortcut on your desktop for logging into the vSphere Web Client. How did I make it? Show you. Okay, so here we are. We don't need to bookmark this long URL. We can actually log out. And with that URL on the screen, I'm going to go to More Tools. I'm going to say Create Application Shortcuts, Pin to Desktop and Taskbar, and that's it. It's done. I'll also suggest that you install vCSA appliance on a fast SSD that you may have in your home lab. It's worth it. You get better performance out of the user interface or the vSphere web client. The experience of administering your home lab is much more pleasant that way. So we made a shortcut on the desktop. I don't necessarily need to keep that one there because I have two shortcuts down here. So again, that is Chrome running. If we look at Task Manager, you see it's Chrome running, but it sure looks like an installed application. Okay. Going back to my slides here. Tip number 3, have those pesky vSphere web client credentials automatically typed in for you. During that video, you may have spotted LastPass. You noticed I didn't actually type administrator at vSphere.local on my keyboard. It automatically logged in for me. So the handy tip right there at tinkertry.com, easy vSphere web client login. Check out that article. It'll tell you how to go ahead and install LastPass Chrome extension if you're interested in a home lab to make it easy to log in. Makes your home lab much more accessible and readily available to go ahead and tinker with, to have fun, to experiment, to leave things running like an appliance that shuts down your entire home data center if the power goes out, like happened to me recently during a lightning storm, or an appliance for OpenVPN, a free way to securely encrypt all traffic through your home, even when you're on the road or in an internet cafe. So there's lots of fun projects and useful projects that I find a great way to learn VMware, and I really enjoy having a lab that's stable, built in a way that looks good, works well, and is low maintenance, which is key for me to enjoying it these last 4 years. Kind of set it up as simply as possible, keep it simple approach, and I'm going to close this out with a closing slide. This presentation is available at this blog post and available at VMware's Customer Spotlight video. Your feedback is always appreciated on all my videos and presentations and at my site, tinkertry.com. You don't even need to log in to drop comments below my articles. Thank you, and this concludes my presentation.